North Carolina's congressional boundary lines took center stage at the Supreme Court today, with the court considering whether they're constitutional. Our Kevin Fry was in the courtroom and joins us now with a recap of today's arguments. Kevin.
This was a day really years in the making, this case from North Carolina appearing here at the Supreme Court. The justices considering one very key question, which is, are the congressional boundary lines in North Carolina created by the Republican leaders there, do they favor the GOP too much? Do they give them too much of a political advantage? And if so, what should the court do? Now, as this hearing was going on inside the courtroom, out here on the steps, we're rallying for the court to intervene. Inside, the question is, what should the court really do? Now, while the liberal justices seemed sympathetic to the argument that too much partisan gerrymandering limits the voices of certain voters, thereby violating their constitutional rights, more conservative justices seemed to question what role the court should play at all. Both sides sounded off after the hearing. Here's what they told us.
This is a time of heightened political polarization. Now is the prime time to reassure voters that they are, in fact, the people who get to decide who occupies that house and the people whose voice gets to be heard.
What would ultimately happen if the plaintiffs prevailed is that you would have this court, the Supreme Court, deciding on every single redistricting bill that passed all 50 states. And I don't think that's something that's manageable.
Now, one of the big things that these justices are going to have to wrestle with is can they formulate some sort of a test? Can they all agree on some sort of standard way of determining how much partisan gerrymandering is too much? That seems to be something that could trip up some of these justices, particularly the more conservative ones. We also did get a hint of as to what one of the most key justices on the bench could decide to do in this case. Brett Kavanaugh here replaced Anthony Kennedy, who was long seen as a swing vote on this issue. He asked today, why now? Why should we get involved when a lot of the states seem to be creating their own independent commissions to manage this, to try to remove the politics from how they draw boundary lines in the state? So really, they're suggesting he might not want to intervene. Any decision in this case will come down over the summer. Reporting at the Supreme Court, I'm Kevin Fry, Spectrum News.